0 seconds. The sun doubles in diameter, its mass doubles with it. So does its total energy output. This is not a solar flare. The sun doesn't explode or expand outward in a shock wave. It simply becomes twice as large, twice as massive, and twice as bright, instantly, without warning. Earth stays where it is, but the orbital math changes completely. The speed that kept Earth in a stable circular orbit was calibrated for one specific gravitational pull. Double the sun's mass, and that speed is no longer enough. Earth is now moving too slowly to hold its circular path. The planet begins falling inward, pulled by a force it cannot outrun, toward a new closest point roughly 1/3 of its current distance from the sun. The journey takes about 70 days. At the start of it, Earth receives twice its normal sunlight. At the end, 18 times. 1 second later, nothing has arrived yet. The new light, the new heat, the change in gravitational pull. All of it travels at the speed of light. The sun is 8 light minutes away. For the next 8 minutes and 20 seconds, every telescope on Earth still sees the old sun. Every satellite still reads normal solar output. Every observatory reports nothing unusual. Earth continues along its old orbit as if the last second didn't happen. There's no alarm to send. The information hasn't arrived. 8 minutes later, the sky changes. The sun doubles in apparent size in an instant. Its disk 4 times larger in area, filling the sky with an orange-white presence that looks nothing like what was there a moment ago. Sunlight reaching the surface doubles immediately. Solar instruments saturate. Radiation sensors spike off their normal scales. At the same moment, the new gravitational pull reaches Earth and begins bending its orbit. Orbital tracking satellites recalculate Earth's trajectory and return results that make no sense at first, then make complete sense, and are far worse. In Los Angeles, morning commuters on the freeway stop their cars and get out to stare. In Times Square, the screens wash out under the intensified daylight. On Miami Beach, tourists sprint for shade. Observatories in Hawaii and Chile are already fielding millions of calls they can't answer because their own teams are doing the calculation that tells them what's coming. Religious gatherings form in city squares within minutes. Schools pull children inside. The world learns in the next few minutes that this is not a flare. It's not temporary. The sun has changed, Earth's orbit has changed, and there are approximately 70 days before the planet reaches its closest point. 30 minutes later, exposed surfaces are already overheating. Roads, rooftops, car hoods, and dry soil are absorbing hundreds of additional watts per square meter. Vehicle interiors become unusable within minutes in direct sun. Greenhouses across Spain and the Netherlands overheat faster than automated systems can compensate. The crops inside will be dead before anyone can open the vents. Outdoor workers across the Middle East and North Africa walk off construction sites. Nobody orders them to. The body simply refuses. People are taping emergency blankets across south-facing windows. Stores are selling out of reflective film, portable fans, and bottled water simultaneously. Underground malls, metro stations, and parking garages fill with people who have nowhere specifically to go but know they need to be out of the sun. The air temperature hasn't doubled. It takes time for the atmosphere to respond, but the radiant heat coming from above is already past the threshold of comfortable, approaching the threshold of dangerous. 1 hour later, power grids are failing across the daylight hemisphere. Air conditioning demand surges faster than any grid was designed to handle. Solar panels briefly produce record output. Then the panels themselves begin overheating, reducing efficiency, and in some cases triggering automatic shutdowns to prevent hardware damage. Thermal power stations lose cooling efficiency as the water they pull from rivers and reservoirs is already warmer than expected. Transformers operating above design temperature begin tripping offline. Phoenix declares a heat emergency while entire city districts lose power simultaneously. Elevators stop in high-rise buildings in Miami. Hospitals in Delhi and Cairo switch to backup generators before the first day is out. Generators that run on diesel that now needs to be rationed. Apartment stairwells fill with elderly residents who can no longer stay in their overheated flats but can't safely be somewhere else. Utility crews working to restore power are working in conditions that will kill them if they stay outside too long. Some businesses start charging extreme prices for water and generator access. Others share everything they have with whoever shows up. 6 hours later, The first afternoon kills people. Regions already experiencing summer heat, the Persian Gulf, the American Southwest, South Asia, cross into lethal territory within the first full afternoon of doubled sunlight. Heat stroke cases overwhelm emergency rooms faster than patients can be treated. In Miami, the combination of intensified sun and coastal humidity produces wet bulb conditions that make the body unable to cool itself even in shade. Death Valley and significant parts of the Gulf states become inaccessible without sealed, actively cooled transport. Wildfires ignite across California and across the Mediterranean simultaneously. Aircraft are grounded at several desert airports as the hot, thin air degrades performance enough to make takeoffs unsafe. Emergency lines stop answering every call. Some neighborhoods organize shared generators and improvise shade corridors and parking lots. Others lock down buildings with functioning air conditioning and refuse entry to anyone who isn't already inside. Night falls on the Western Hemisphere. It doesn't offer the reset people are hoping for. 12 hours later, the night side traps the heat. Concrete, asphalt, and seawater release the day's accumulated energy slowly. Temperatures fall after sunset, but nowhere near as far as normal. Millions without electricity cannot cool their homes. New York apartments stay dangerously hot hours after dark. Emergency rooms in Houston run out of cooled treatment space. Dense cities turn out to be more dangerous overnight than open rural areas were during the afternoon. There are too many people, too little airflow, and too much stored heat radiating from every surface. Families sleep on pavements and rooftops looking for airflow. Crowds refuse to leave powered hospitals and transit stations. People carry water upstairs to elderly neighbors who can't get out. The fires burning across California and the Mediterranean cast an orange light across the night sky that from a distance looks almost beautiful. On the other side of the planet, billions are waking up to see the enlarged sun for the first time, one day later. Every country has seen the new sun. None of them are ready for it. The opposite hemisphere experiences doubled sunlight for the first time as Earth rotates. Agricultural systems designed around stable temperature ranges enter immediate stress. Livestock die in poorly ventilated facilities across Texas, Brazil, and Southeast Asia. Rice crops across South and Southeast Asia suffer heat and water stress that will affect the harvest. London Underground stations are being used as improvised shelters. The Great Barrier Reef is already experiencing thermal shock on a scale that makes previous bleaching events look minor. Governments begin rationing electricity and fuel. People abandon any job that requires being outdoors. Prison and hospital evacuations start in the hottest regions. Airports and train stations fill with families carrying what they can. Highways leaving southern cities are packed in both directions. Some people fleeing toward cooler regions, some trying to reach relatives, some simply moving because standing still feels like giving up. Earth has barely moved. Almost all of this comes from the initial doubling alone. 3 days later, infrastructure begins failing faster than it can be repaired. Repeated daylight heating prevents transformers, buildings, and water systems from cooling down between cycles. Power failures spread across entire regions. Pumping stations stop, water pressure drops, refrigerated food and medication spoil. Hospitals lose both power and water in the same day and have to choose which patients to prioritize with whatever backup capacity remains. Las Vegas shuts down. The hotels converted into overcrowded shelters before the water and cooling systems fail and force abandonment. Wildfires surround Los Angeles and Athens. Families break into empty hotels and underground garages seeking shelter. Fuel theft rises around every backup generator. People form convoys heading north toward Canada and Scandinavia, toward altitude, toward anything that seems cooler. 1 week later, the global climate is breaking apart. A full week of doubled solar energy has altered the atmosphere across every continent. Evaporation has accelerated dramatically over warm oceans. Massive convective thunderstorms form and collapse daily. In some regions, the storms bring violent flooding. In others, dry air and fire have destroyed the vegetation before any rain arrives. Major crops have suffered irreversible damage during their most vulnerable growth stages. Fire complexes merge across California, Southern Europe, and Australia into continent-scale events that create their own weather. The Amazon, already under decades of stress, is experiencing simultaneous heat, drought, and fire. Greenland develops widespread surface meltwater that feeds rivers nobody mapped. Phoenix and most of the Persian Gulf cities are largely evacuated. Deaths are now in the millions from heat, fires, medical collapse, and failed water systems. Hundreds of millions are moving or preparing to. National borders become militarized. Food exports are suspended. People hold final celebrations and family reunions as the countdown continues. They know what the numbers mean. 2 weeks later, the sun appears to be growing again. Because it is. Earth is now at roughly 0.97 astronomical units, having fallen slightly closer to the sun. Combined with the already doubled solar output, the planet is now receiving about 2.1 times its original energy. Numerically, that sounds modest. The climate has already lost its ability to recover between days. Heat accumulates in the oceans and atmosphere faster than it can be released. Morning temperatures in Miami and Mumbai are approaching what used to be the hottest recorded afternoon highs. The Mediterranean has become a continuous fire zone. Northern railway systems are overwhelmed by migration. Freshwater reservoirs are developing dangerous bacterial growth from the heat. Polar sea ice retreats at a rate that would have been classified as catastrophic a month ago. Now it barely makes the news. Conventional agriculture has collapsed across most of the tropics. Farm animals are being slaughtered in large numbers because feed and cooling are unavailable. Families choose which members get places in protected shelters. Medical staff refuse evacuation orders because moving their patients would kill them. 3 weeks later. The oceans are feeding violent, destructive weather. Warm ocean surfaces pump enormous quantities of moisture into the atmosphere. Thunderstorms grow taller and more violent than anything in recorded history. Rain falls in destructive bursts, and then the surface heats again the next morning. New York experiences torrential floods after days of dangerous heat. Tokyo's drainage systems fail repeatedly under back-to-back storms. Warm Atlantic water fuels cyclones of extraordinary intensity. Coastal regions cycle between extreme humidity and extreme flooding. Neither phase survivable for long without shelter. Ports stop functioning reliably. Aid shipments can't reach cities with damaged infrastructure. Disease spreads through overcrowded camps that lack clean water. Millions who escaped the heat are now being caught by floods and landslides from burned slopes. People move repeatedly, first from heat, then from fire, then from water, never finding stable ground. Some evacuation ships refuse additional passengers after violence breaks out at dockside. Naval vessels rescue people from cities their crews can no longer supply. 1 month remains before the closest approach. 1 month later, civilization is failing globally. Earth has fallen to roughly 0.86 astronomical units. The planet receives about 2.7 times its original solar energy. The worst is still ahead, but the combined failure of electricity, water, agriculture, healthcare, and transport is already irreversible across vast regions. Crop production has failed across most of India, China, Africa, the Mediterranean, and the American interior. Ocean ecosystems are undergoing mass die-offs. Deaths have reached the hundreds of millions through heat, dehydration, famine, fire, disease, failed medical care, and violence around protected infrastructure. Billions are alive but have no reliable source of food, water, or cooling. Las Vegas is dark, its casinos converted into shelters before being abandoned when water failed. Miami's remaining residents survive inside sealed buildings while the streets become lethal from heat and flooding. Los Angeles is divided by burned districts and dead power zones. New York operates underground shelters while managing millions of arrivals and repeated infrastructure failures. Dubai's towers stand largely empty. Cooling systems gone, the streets outside approaching temperatures incompatible with survival. London and Paris ration water and electricity and receive refugee populations their infrastructure wasn't built for. Governments convert subway systems, mines, and mountain tunnels into survival complexes. Nuclear facilities are kept operational wherever cooling remains possible. Electricity now determines who lives. Some military units become the last functioning distribution networks. Others fragment entirely. Families separate, sending children toward colder regions while adults stay behind. People mark the remaining 40 days on shelter walls. 45 days later, Earth crosses into rapid destruction. The planet is at roughly 0.69 astronomical units, receiving more than 4 times its original solar energy. High latitudes that served as refuges for the first month are no longer safe. Much of Canada experiences temperatures formerly associated with tropical deserts. Scandinavia's ports fill with abandoned ships and people with nowhere to go. Siberian permafrost collapses into methane-rich mud. The Great Lakes grow dangerously warm near the surface. Most remaining alpine snow is gone. Surface agriculture ends almost everywhere. Mass starvation begins consuming populations that survived the first month. Wild animal populations collapse. Underground refuges that depended on surface cooling systems start failing. The ground itself is warming. Entire national governments stop broadcasting. Working power plants become fortified settlements. Engineers take priority over politicians because a functioning cooling loop now matters more than any political structure. Armed groups attempt to seize dams, mines, and underground transport facilities. Some facilities seal their blast doors and leave crowds outside. 60 days later. The surface biosphere collapses. Earth is at roughly 0.44 astronomical units. Solar intensity exceeds 10 times its modern value. The upper layers of the ocean heat rapidly. Wet bulb conditions, the point at which the human body cannot cool itself even with unlimited water, are reached across nearly all populated lowlands. Vegetation that survived the previous 6 weeks of heat and fire dies across entire continents. The Amazon is a landscape of burned forest, dead vegetation, and steam-filled storms. The Great Barrier Reef is biologically destroyed. Manhattan's streets are abandoned. The Hollywood sign looks out over a largely burned and empty Los Angeles. Greenland is crossed by torrents of meltwater cascading into a warming sea. Billions are dead. The surviving human population has contracted into deep mines, hardened mountain facilities, sealed military installations, submarines, and a small number of polar and high-altitude complexes. Many of those are already failing, power systems running down, cooling loops losing capacity, food stocks exhausted. No meaningful global government remains. Surviving facilities stop communicating with each other to conserve energy. People stop asking whether the crisis will end. They ask whether their cooling system will last 10 more days. 65 days later. The moon's orbit is destabilizing. At this distance from the sun, its tidal forces are strong enough to distort the Earth-Moon system. Earth's gravitational territory has shrunk. The moon's orbit deforms. It appears at unusual positions and sizes, closer in some passes, angled differently, no longer the predictable companion it has been for billions of years. Solar tides drive extreme ocean movement below. Coastlines experience enormous and irregular surges. Powerful currents tear through straits. The remaining inhabited coastal zones are abandoned. Submarines move into deeper, more stable water. Astronomers in underground facilities track the moon's path, knowing there is nothing to be done about it. Some watch it through protected cameras, aware it may be the last time anyone observes it clearly. Only 5 days remain. 70 days later. Earth reaches its closest point. The sun appears 6 times wider in the sky than it once did, its disk covering 36 times more sky than before. Earth receives approximately 18 times its original solar energy. Solar tidal forces are 50 times stronger. The planet does not touch the sun, it doesn't need to. The exposed surface is incompatible with human civilization. Most complex land life is dead. The atmosphere is dense with steam, smoke, and violent storm systems. The oceans haven't boiled. Water has an enormous heat capacity. But their surfaces are hostile to almost all familiar life and are releasing clouds of steam into an already saturated atmosphere. Coasts are battered by extreme tides and shifting ocean circulation. Glaciers and sea ice have undergone losses that would have been called impossible at the start of the year. New York's skyline stands empty beneath the monstrous sun. The Las Vegas Strip is buried in dust, its signs dark. Miami is partially flooded and abandoned. London sits under a hot, storm-torn sky. What remains of the Amazon is burning or dead. The remaining humans are in sealed shelters in darkness, watching countdown clocks that have reached zero and wondering what the next 141 days will bring. Because this orbit is elliptical and Earth will return to this same closest point again. The sun never swallowed Earth. It only pulled it close enough